Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. It's a little bit after 2 o'clock Eastern time, so we'll get this thing going. I'm having a lot of fun with Zoom backgrounds. So this guy behind me is actually the 15-year-old version of me at, I think, high school freshman orientation. And if I don't find a haircut soon, I'm going to look like that guy again pretty soon. So anyway, Zoom backgrounds have gotten me through this, I think. But I'll spare you the details. I'll stop sharing video here so we can get onto the PowerPoint. And we're going to do quite a bit of a, kind of live demonstration today. Guys, I've been working in this industry since 1998, I believe, is when I got started working with advisors. And so the world is very different today than it was then, but that's only 22 years ago. So I don't typically lead off with a little bit of history here, but I think it's, it's appropriate for the topic we're discussing today. So a little bit of background on myself. I got started with a little company. I was employee number 11 in downtown Duluth, Minnesota, of all places, back in 1998. And it was a company called 50 Below. They're not around anymore. They've been acquired, and that company was acquired. And so they've been, they're a distant memory at this point. But we used to do template websites back in the late 90s. So we were really early into the website game in the financial services industry. So, around 2002, 2003, if you'd have gone to, let's say, Ameriprise.com or SmithBarney.com before their merger with Morgan or RBC or a handful of other firms, you would have been greeted with a locator, much like you are today. Type in your zip code, find an advisor near you. Well, that technology is pretty commoditized today, but back then it was cutting edge stuff, So, and then you put in your zip code and you'd find the advisors in your area. And then if you clicked on one of the advisors' names, you'd get a website that would pop up. Some of those websites were like one-pagers back then, but they were just templated websites, and they were driven by the data sheet that the firm would send over every day. And if you were on the sheet, you got a website. If you weren't, you didn't have a website. And then we had other relationships where the advisors actually had to purchase their websites instead of the firm purchasing it for them. And I'll tell you, back then, we're talking, $25 a month websites, late 90s, early to really, 2005, 2006. It still blows my mind today, but we would have a difficult time renewing advisors on a $25 a month website. It seems insane, right? Most of you on the webinar cannot imagine doing business without your website. And that's pretty true across the board now. But back then, really literally the advisors would say things like, hey, you know what? I'm in the yellow pages, so I don't need the website, right? And they were probably right at that time. But I bring all this up just to say that, oh my gosh, how fast have things changed in this industry and in every industry, right? So who's still in the yellow pages? We're now more concerned about our Google ranking than we are being in the book, right? Our lives, it's been a fast transformation. If you look at it day by day, it might not seem that fast, but it's been a really fast transformation for a lot of you. You probably had your first website around 2008, right? So it's been 12 years for you. For me, it's been 22 in this really digital focused business development and marketing world focused on the financial services industry. So, I really just speak about, I just speak to that history because, wow, we've come a long way in that amount of time. Imagine, when you set up your first email address. I think my mom was the first person I knew with an email address, and her email address had something to do with 1992, if I recall. So, I mean, that's 30 years ago now, but even so, we've moved so fast and things have changed so much. And now, of course, we're in a really unprecedented area, right? Where we're all highly affected by this global pandemic, right? And I hope that all of you are doing well. I am actually, you got to see the backgrounds and stuff, and that's to hide the fact that I'm actually working out of my bedroom for the last 4 weeks, which is a little bit crazy. So if you hear dogs bark and you hear kids in the background, I'm not alone in the house. So anyway, we've all got these disruptions going on in our lives right now. But most of us are working from some remote location. We're not in a lot of contact with other humans, at least in person. And so it really really makes what Social Advisors does as a company, I would say more appropriate, than it was even a month ago. And anyway, we've got to interact with people differently. We can't let our businesses go away. We've got to stay in touch with our clients. We've got to stay in touch with our prospects and our COIs. And a lot of that is happening, of course, digitally. So anyway, today I'm going to talk about prospecting in a digital world, in a social distancing environment. I don't know what the future holds. I was coaching a Morgan Stanley advisor in Philadelphia yesterday. And I asked her, I said, what's Morgan Stanley's outlook on all this? And she said, Morgan Stanley believes that we will return to pre-COVID work, get this, in quarter 4 of 2021. Now, I don't know exactly what that means if we're not going anywhere until we get a vaccine for all this, or we find a cure for all this. But suffice it to say, we have to get ready for the long haul, and it's likely that this is going to change our businesses and the businesses of the people that that are our clients and our friends and our prospects and our families. So we have to evolve with that. Now, in that time since 1998. I've seen quite a few market cycles being a part of this industry, right? So, obviously 9/11 was a huge impact, and that rolled right into the dot-com burst. I was one of those really smart people that bought a house in 2007. So I was not only personally, but as a professional in the industry, I was affected by the housing crisis in 2008 and 2009. And here we are now in another house, in another market cycle. Here's what I recall about those last 2 market cycles, having worked with advisors through all of that, is, it really created opportunity. The graph that I'm showing you here is a graph by a gentleman named Neil Patel. Neil is a marketing expert. I've followed this guy for years. He focuses a lot of his energy on SEO, search engine optimization for your website. He's not specific to our industry, but this was in an article that Neil sent me maybe 2 weeks ago. And I wouldn't doubt it if these numbers have changed a little bit. But this is just looking at, since COVID-19 and all of us going into, some isolation type living, social distancing, this is what has happened with internet searches. Obviously, travel is way down, advertising's down, manufacturing, insurance. But I want you to pay attention to, obviously, healthcare and food, media, but look at finance. The searches for finance are up almost 30%. And I wouldn't be surprised if we updated these stats from a couple of weeks ago if that was actually higher, because I think that people go into a little bit deeper panic as things are not changing, right? We are battened down for the long haul. I don't know if that means a month, 6 months. I don't know what that means. But I wouldn't be surprised to see these numbers on finance, finance searches growing. It is top of mind for most everybody right now. Whether we're dealing with income loss, whether we're dealing with being hit hard by the market downturn, this creates opportunity, right? So I do a lot of coaching of advisors, not only on social media and LinkedIn, but also on business development in general. Been doing that for several years, and I can tell you, we spend a lot of our time, since 2009, and everything's been going pretty well. And, you'd have to be really not very good at your job to not be performing for your clients, right? So in that time when the market's going well, we don't see a lot of clients moving from one advisor to another, right? It just everybody performs pretty well. It's not a big concern of theirs. It's when we come into a market cycle like we're in right now, or like we were in 2008, 2009, that's when we see a lot of change in this industry. And so for the advisors that I've been working with for any length of time, our focus when everything's going well is the development of relationships, building trust, whether we're gaining trust through mutual connections, whether we're gaining trust by producing value when someone's not even our client. And the missing ingredient in that equation is timing, right? For the sales aspect of those relationships. That timing is close to upon us. I'm not coaching people to reach out and be trying to transition prospects into clients at the moment, because I think that really we're working on stability first. But whether it's 15, 30, 60 days from now, we will be hitting the sales component of those relationships really hard, based on the fact that now we have the timing element that creates a perfect storm for the sales opportunities. So Market cycles are difficult on everybody, but for you, the advisor growing a book of business, this creates a growth opportunity for you. Okay, so what's important to be able to take advantage of this growth opportunity is that you've done a good job building relationships in the weeks, months, and years leading up to this timing. Okay, so I hope for all of you that you have. All right, let me jump into the meat of things a little bit here. These are 4 basic stages of a marketing plan or a business development plan. You know, a lot of times you'll see this, this is, depicted as a funnel, right? A sales funnel. Essentially at the top of that funnel, one of the things that we absolutely need to do is attract new people to our business. Now, if you think about how this is done historically, right? Referrals have always been big, right? So if you're doing a good job and getting people through this whole pipeline to the advocate stage, then you're building referral resources, right? If you do a good job with COIs, again, referrals will always be a key component of your business development. Many of you getting into this industry, your sales coaches and your branch managers, they made you dial that phone 150 times a day, right? The phone is really turning into a pretty antiquated tool. It's a great communication tool. It's really turning into an antiquated business development and business development tool, prospecting tool. Seminars, right? I've seen seminars 15 years ago, like the main way to get people in a room, to get those people to attract those strangers into the top of your funnel, to give them some information and turn them into clients of yours. Well, seminars have become more and more difficult to do. They're more expensive. Information is more readily available now. You know, a lot of times we get the plate lickers, right? You can't see me, but I use my finger quotes when I say that. So a lot of times now we get the plate lickers that are there for the chicken dinner, right? And they're going to listen to what you have to say. And quite frankly, I find that if you do get a client via seminar, that means you landed a client because someone picked up your postcard and on the way to the recycling box said, I like chicken. Maybe I'll go to this thing, right? It took very little effort to get them. It takes very little effort to separate that client from you as well. So anyway, so if they're easy to get, they're easy to lose typically too. Packing that sales funnel, that attraction stage, finding the strangers to bring to your business, if they're not coming through your current relationships, they're coming really in one of 2 different ways, and most of it's digital. I know a lot of advisors who are running ads, right? Mostly Facebook ads. I know a lot of advisors that are networking. That's one of the things that goes away in this social distancing environment. We can't be in front of those people. Seminars go away. So really the 2 things that I'm seeing work are Facebook advertising to some degree, though that's not an easy one, and LinkedIn, which is a much easier one. And so we're going to talk a little bit about leveraging LinkedIn for the growth of your business. Social Advisors put together a system which actually works really well. I did see the name of a couple of clients as you signed in, so thanks for being here. I appreciate that. But statistically, 80% of business-to-business leads that come off the internet, and I don't care if you're running, I don't care if you're running Facebook ads or Twitter ads or you're leveraging some other platform. 80% of the leads the business-to-business leads that come off the internet come directly from LinkedIn. The remaining 20% are like Facebook's like 4%. I can't remember exactly the stats, but anyway, the remaining 20% is a cobble of other websites, right? Now, some of you may say, hey, but I'm not really business to business. Well, fact of the matter is that if you do business with professionals or business owners, and of course, plan sponsors, yeah, it's business to consumer, but they're in a professional environment. So LinkedIn is a really ideal place to start conversations with these people, right? So, statistically, one more stat sheet, and then we'll move on to some meat. Essentially, LinkedIn is a platform that if you were to identify a professional type target for your business, they're going to be in large part on LinkedIn. So whether you are, prospecting executives, right? Or whether you're prospecting plan sponsors for their benefits package, whether you're prospecting business owners for the problems that you can solve for them, or young professionals or dentists or doctors, all of these populations are in large part on LinkedIn. So we're going to focus our attention today on LinkedIn. We're going to focus our attention today on starting conversations on LinkedIn and converting those people into prospects so that when we come to another timing event, like we're in right now, they're easy to convert into clients, right? We've got to build the relationship, the trust, and the value. And when those three things are in place, it's simply timing that creates the client and business development opportunity. So we're going to go through 5 steps. We're going to rip through these pretty quickly. Again, I don't want to keep you all day. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. Don't need to take the whole hour. We're going through some fairly simple concepts. So we're going to walk through 5 steps pretty quickly. And then we're actually going to get into a live demo because I want to show you how our system is today, what it's evolving to, and just give you some ideas. Whether you're using social advisors or not, this is going to give you good ideas for what you can do for yourself to duplicate the types of things that we do for our clients. Okay, so the very first thing that you need to do is understand the niche that you service. Okay, I have heard over the years, I like to ask the question, who do you attract to your business, or who do you want to attract to your business? Over the years, the answer that I've gotten more than any other to that question is anyone with money. I'm going to tell you that, unless it's a referral coming from your clients, unless it's a fairly easy thing to do based on the groundwork you've laid with relationships in the past, anyone with money is a really bad answer to that question. Okay. It's really hard to market to anyone with money. However, if you choose, you're going to market to executives, you can talk about the problems that you solve for executives. If you're going to market to young professionals, maybe you're a young advisor and you want to market to young professionals. Young professionals have a lot of problems, right? I mean, they got many of them, school debt, which doesn't pay you today. But the fact is, if they're an attorney or a doctor or something like that, they're in a high wage earning position. And if you can get them through this time, you're going to have them for a very long time. They're going to pay dividends in the future. Plan sponsors, business owners, right? So I highly encourage you to pick a niche. That's not to say you can't take clients outside of that niche, but by choosing a niche, you can position yourself as the de facto opportunity within that industry, within your backyard, within your social circles. So understand who it is that you want to do business with. That is step 1 in this whole engagement. Okay. Now, we have to get introduced to the people within that niche. I'm going to show you how on LinkedIn that is so simple to do. Okay. LinkedIn creates such an opportunity. So the second step is, once we know who it is that we're trying to attract to our business and marketing to, it's getting in front of that audience as quickly and easily and as efficiently as possible. I see we got a question that's popped up. Patrice, yeah, I would say absolutely. You can certainly have more than one niche. Now, that being said, when you're developing marketing materials, copywriting for your website, you're going to need to speak to both niches, right? So I would say that if you have 2 niches, you're really probably splitting your time 50-50. If your niche is big enough and fruitful enough and affluent enough, I would highly recommend you pick one. Right? Again, not to say that you can't take people from outside of that niche as clients, but as you're writing your marketing communication, as you're developing your copy, having one niche is probably easier than 2, though. Yes, by all means, you could have 2. Great question, Patrice. And thank you for that. Okay, so moving right along, we need to make that soft introduction. Okay. Now there's a certain set of problems that each niche has, right? With business owners, right? Maybe it's things about succession planning. Perhaps, plans, maybe you do 401k as well. It's setting up the right benefits package and taking on fiduciary responsibility, and minimizing the risk for that business owner. A business owner myself, and you could ask my wife this, it's taking money out of the business and putting it into your life, right? And saving for that retirement. I've got the tendency to want to grow the business, right? And I've got to balance that. So no matter what niche you choose, you're going to understand what are the problems that you're solving for that particular niche. Now, when you decide on what those things are, that is when you can start developing content, right? The content that is going to display you as a solution to their problems, that's going to build your brand above other financial advisors' brands servicing the same clients in your area or the same prospects in your area. And the content I'm talking about is things like email marketing. Email becomes really, really important in a digital prospecting or a prospecting and social distance type strategy, right? Social media content. Now, I cannot understate this enough, right? Too many advisors, not too many, but a lot of advisors have said to me, Charlie, I just quit posting content because anytime I put an article out there, I wouldn't get any interaction on it. Here's what I'd say is, and some of you are probably nodding your head right now, right? So you're not getting a lot of interaction on your financial content. Well, I'm going to share with you, not a lot of people do, right? You've got to be a pretty extreme thought leader to really get a lot of interaction on that financial content, right? But here's what that does. If you've got a network on LinkedIn of, let's say, 1,000 people, when you put an article out there, it's likely that that content gets in front of maybe 10 or 15% of those people, 100, 150 views. If you get a lot of interaction on that content, the eyeballs on your content are going to grow exponentially based on that interaction, the likes and comments. Now, even though your financial content is not getting a ton of interaction, continue to post it. What it does is it displays you as a thought leader in that space, right? It reinforces your professional brand. So don't be discouraged by the fact that it doesn't get a lot of interaction. It's just the nature of that type of content that doesn't typically get a lot of interaction. A couple suggestions for you. Vary the type of content that you share, right? So Patrice, I recognize your name from a previous webinar when you had the question there. So maybe you've heard this from me before. We've done a lot of custom blog writing in the past, and I use a couple of these examples because they're great examples to display my point here. We wrote a blog one time. We had a financial advisor client that he liked to share with me that Justin Bieber was one of his clients, or he was one on a team that that serviced Justin Bieber. So this guy was ultra high net worth, right? And he had us write a blog for him one time. It was years ago. It was Los Angeles Clippers had changed hands. Steve Ballmer bought the Los Angeles Clippers, and then the Buffalo Bills were purchased at that same time as well. And so based on that, we wrote a blog that was something like professional sports franchise, billionaires play toy or sound investment strategy, right? And we probably could have made it go either way, depending on what the advisor wanted. Here's what's funny about this blog. When I was writing it, I thought, oh my gosh, what a waste of time, right? Who does this really impact? It impacts like 0.00001% of the world, right? The Jerry Jones of the world, In fact, if any of you follow Gary Vee of social media brand fame, he's been trying to buy into the New York Jets forever. That guy's got a lot of money. He still doesn't play in that sandbox, right? So that blog topic affected very few people. I will tell you, I had egg on my face because it got shared so many times, and it was because it was about sports. It was because it was about recognizable sports brands. So it was more lifestyle oriented. One that was a little more practical, we did a compare and contrast to the 5-year ownership cost of the BMW 7 Series versus whatever the top end Lexus was at the time. Spoiler alert, the BMW is like $75,000 more to own over 5 years. That one, again, because it was about cars, got a ton of shares, got a ton of interaction. So that was good content. Don't be afraid to share personal content. And on LinkedIn, I'm not talking about what you had for dinner, but if you do an event at the branch, something you're not doing now, but when we return to some stability and normalcy, heck, even pictures of you in your home office, right? That's something we're all sharing in common right now. These personal type posts get a lot more interaction than those financial, market type posts. But don't quit sharing the financial content because that's all about positioning you. And by all means, you have to track who is engaging with your content. Those are your next prospects, by the way. So anyway, we'll get into how to track those in a moment. So step 5 is, again, you've got to track your network, how they're reacting to your content. That's both email and social media content. Okay. So you got to have some tracking in place to be able to know who your opportunities are with. It's pretty simple. Okay. Now, we've developed a system. And again, I saw a couple clients on here. And so if you've got questions about this, if you're not already working in this regard with us, certainly we can connect after the webinar or, in the coming days before the week's out. We've made some pretty significant transitions. You're going to see LinkedIn is a great place to meet professionals. We've talked about that. It's a great place to make a soft introduction. Once that introduction is made, we now have the ability to actually pull the contact information for the person off of LinkedIn into several different CRMs. And I'm going to show you an example of the CRM that we use in-house and how we do this with our CRM. So once they're inside the CRM, we can send them emails. Now, of course, in order to be compliant with email laws and regulations, we have to get an opt-in. There's several ways of making that happen easily. So now people are not only seeing our social media content, they're also seeing our emails on a consistent basis. We track the results of those emails and social media interaction, and then we know who our hottest opportunities are with. Okay, so let me show you, and we're in a live environment, so I don't typically have too many issues with this live environment, but every now and then we get a little bit of a crash on the internet. So, let's hope, I got my fingers crossed. Let's hope everything goes absolutely as well as it can, right? So let me switch to a different button here. It looks like I got another question. Oh, that's, sorry, Patrice, that was your question that was still up there. So, all right. So I'm on my buddy Derek. On my buddy Derek's, I'm using that a little bit loosely. He's not really a huge buddy of mine, but my acquaintance Derek LinkedIn page, right? Here's what I want to do. You can see we got all kinds of messages popping in. This happens pretty much all day long. So I'm going to click on Sales Navigator. Now, for those of you who have not used Sales Navigator before, at the tip of the iceberg, Sales Navigator is a query tool. It's a query tool that allows you to search all the profiles on LinkedIn for people that you might want to meet, right? So let's say you live in Houston, Texas, okay? We'll grab Greater Houston, and there's 2.4 million profiles on LinkedIn in the Greater Houston area. Let's say you focus your prospecting on oil and energy, and you're looking for just executives in oil and energy. Here's 11,000 profiles for executives, C-suite executives in Greater Houston in the oil and energy industry. So if I hit search on this is a list of everybody that came up in that search. Here's a really great one, right? Money in motion always matters. Here's 160 of these oil and gas executives that have changed jobs in the last 90 days. Hopefully some of you are like, oh, wow, that's awesome, right? We love that rollover opportunity, foot in the door type stuff, right? So if we can make a compelling argument for helping them in their rollover, that gives us the opportunity to do a whole lot more business with them, right? Let me jump back into that. Let's go back to the view all filters. We'll get back to this page. So essentially what this is, LinkedIn gives us all of these criteria to find the right people, right? So this is where we want to have an understanding of our niche. Maybe we, I don't know, maybe we're in Chicago, Illinois. I'll just do a couple of these. Greater Chicago, we've got 3 million plus results there. Perhaps we're looking for business owners. Business owner, founder, maybe we'll we'll just leave it with that. We still got 210,000 people. Now, you know what, don't tell anybody, but years ago, I dabbled in multi-level marketing. dabbled like for a week until I realized I was that guy, right? I could have called myself a business owner of my multi-level marketing distributorship, and I would have shown up in this search. Well, that's not somebody you want to work with, right? So what we want to do is look at maybe years of experience, more than 6 in that particular business. And then perhaps we want to go just with businesses with 50 or more people, right? Actually, I think what we did was captured 11 or more people. So we'll just stick with that. But so all I want to show you is the different criteria we can use to get in front of the audience. So in Chicago, Illinois, we've got business owners or founders with 6 to 10 years experience. And I think we put in 10 plus as well with 6 or more years experience in businesses that have 11 or more people. That's a great target. Perhaps we want to expand that. Maybe we want to throw in some HR titles, right? Maybe we throw in human resources. Maybe you're focused on that plan sponsor, human resource manager, director. Maybe we throw in chief operating officer or chief financial. Right? Maybe we throw in controller. All right. So now our number is up over 54,000 people that if you're prospecting plan sponsors, that's a lot of people to be able to talk to. You can get a lot more stringent on your search criteria. So I show you a couple of these different searches because I want you to realize how easy it is to find the type of people that you want to talk to for your business, okay? So the very first thing that you would do once someone is send out a connection request. Incidentally, when we do this for our clients, we send out 60 invitations to connect every single day except Sunday, right? So over the course of a month, we're sending out approximately 1,400 invitations to these 11,000 oil and gas executives in Houston, right? Out of that activity, you end up getting about 250 or 300 new connections added to your LinkedIn network every single month. That's 250 or 300 new sets of eyeballs that you have an opportunity to create a conversation with that will have the potential of seeing the content that you're posting, that if you're proactive in finding something on their profile that you can start a conversation with, it creates a great opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the people that you want to do business with. Now, one of the things that we do is once somebody reciprocates, we've got the ability, we'll come back to this, we've got the ability to take their contact information. I click on Derek's here, let's see what he's got available, great. So we've got the ability to take this contact information and automatically import it. Now, the only thing Derek's missing here is phone number, but he does have an email address. So we can automatically import it. Looks like we got a question here. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, Patrice, I thought I'd dismissed that one already, but then it came back. Sorry about that. So we can pull Derek's contact information or anybody else that accepts that connection request, and we pull it into our CRM. Okay. Now, what's cool about that is now we've got them in an environment where we can send them email as well. Incidentally, we pull them into this CRM, but we can work with a handful of CRMs. So if you're using Salesforce, if you're using Infusionsoft, if you're using, even Wealthbox or Redtail, we can pull them into your CRM directly as well. Here's the thing with Wealthbox and Redtail, not really marketing CRMs, right? So having a LinkedIn connection in your CRM doesn't make much sense unless you can market to them and track that. If you're using Redtail or Wealthbox or one of the other industry-related CRMs, I would recommend that you set up a MailChimp or a Constant Contact and use that for communication. Of course, compliance needs to be aware of all that. So what we do is once we pull somebody into the CRM, we send them an email to get them to opt into email communication. That's a very important step to get them to opt into email communication, right? And once they do, I'll just share with you a couple of samples of a couple of emails that we send out on behalf of our clients. Once they opt in, they'll receive a series of emails that go out. Each email is going to have a couple different calls to action on it, right? So, oh, there you go, a couple others, right? So anyway, so they receive automated email communication as a result of opting into that email. Now, of course, those are spaced out by several days, and it's all pre-written and pre-approved by compliance. So it's a completely compliant solution. You're going to see what's cool here is the system scores these people on how they interact with that email communication. One of the things that I love about this CRM platform, it also scores them on how they interact with your social media communication. So you can track people over, say, 90 days, 120 days. And once they hit a certain echelon, the system automatically makes you aware that they're interacting with all of your content, right? So if they open every email, click on every link, and interact with a couple of your social media posts, you'll automatically get a notification that this person is heavily involved in your, in your email communication, in your content marketing. They're worth reaching out. Now think about this. You've got, let's say you're prospecting doctors, physicians, and you've got a physician that's reading all of your emails, interacting with a bit of your social media content. They've been in your system for 2 months, perhaps. They know who you are because they're reading all of your content. You don't have any idea who they are, right? They're just a person that you connected with on LinkedIn. This automated system is prospecting on your behalf. And so once they reach that certain point level, we also generate this sales profile. Now, this is based on DISC assessment. And so the beauty of this, a 10-page sales profile, the design of this is before you ever reach out to schedule that call with that person that's been interacting with your content, you also now are learning about who they are. So Derek, who we used in our first example, I get to know Derek and I actually align very closely within our personality comparison. We're both, as DISC is concerned, we're both drivers. I get to learn what comes naturally to Derek, right? Driving others to action, feeling anxious about someone else making decisions on his behalf. I can empathize with that. What energizes Derek and what drains Derek. Tells me what to say when I speak to him. If I'm in a meeting with Derek, what to do. When emailing to convince Derek, and there's a section down here that I absolutely love. I want to call Derek to make a sales pitch. View advice. All right? Things I should say, things I should do, and things I should not do. Listen, this thing is awesome. It's all about providing you the intelligence. You're reaching out to a stranger, providing you the intelligence and the communication factors that you should be focusing on. Now, I highly recommend that when you reach out to them, especially in our social distancing, you use a tool like Zoom, right? I don't get to see you guys, unfortunately, but you get to connect with me as an individual, as a person, right? Not just a voice behind a webinar, not just a person over the phone, right? We actually get to have some very personal communication without being in the same room as each other. So Zoom has taken a beating in the news in these last few weeks. They had some data breaches. That's a problem. They have fixed a lot of that. I use Zoom because it's the easiest for me to use. But of course, there's several out there. Join Me, GoToMeeting, WebEx. So there's several screen share and video conference type applications out there. If you're meeting with somebody for the first time in an environment like we currently live in, I highly recommend you do it over this forum, right? So if we were meeting and not in a webinar format, we would all be on this screen. In fact, I'll tell you what, this is kind of an aside, but about 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine that I went to high school with, which will be 30 years ago next year, which is a little bit crazy, sent me a link, said, hey, log into this at whatever time on this Thursday night. So at 8 o'clock, I log into the Zoom link that he sent. were like 17 people I went to high school with. Some of them I barely remembered, right? Some probably barely remembered me. But at the same time, it was such a fun way to connect, especially when we're all really segregated and in our own homes. So anyway, love these screen share applications and these video conference applications. Use these as much as you possibly can, right? These allow you to give that personal touch, even in a time when we can't be in person with people. So that's pretty awesome. So if you think about it, what we just did is we found the people that we wanted to talk to on LinkedIn. We used LinkedIn to start a soft conversation. And once we started that soft conversation, we moved them into the CRM environment where we could nurture them with email and social media content and track how they interact with that content. The system's intelligent enough to know that when they reach a certain level of interaction with that content, it can generate a task to you, the user, so that you know to follow up with that person, that they're well aware of who you are and are likely to take a meeting with you. And then beyond that, we send you that sales profile that really warms you up to who that person is before you get on the phone with them. So I'm going to quit the video here because I distract myself watching myself talk a little bit. Let me get back to our PowerPoint so we can finish up here. Quick little case study. Now this is an advisor who, when he started with us, he was prospecting only on LinkedIn, but since that time has gotten on the CRM portion of what I've shown you. We did this case study when this advisor was with us at 16 months. He's been with us now about 2.5, maybe 3 years. At that time, Adam was generating 1 to 2 clients, a client every 6 weeks or so. At 16 months, he had an investment with us of about $11,000. He had $43,000 in annual recurring revenue as a result of that. Second career guy in his 40s. And I think he was, when he started with us, was maybe in second year of being an advisor. And as of the time of the case study, had landed his biggest client to date of $3 million through someone that he was introduced to via LinkedIn. So, and then, I'll go slow on these so you can read them. But of course, a little bit of social proof in the process and in the way that our processes work. We're doing, we're starting a lot of conversations and a lot of opportunities for the advisors that we represent. And if that's of any interest to you whatsoever, of course, we would love to work with you too. So we're in a crazy time right now, completely sensitive to that. The market turmoil, our social distancing is the timing that if you've done a good job building relationships in the past weeks and months and years, your timing is just about upon you to convert some of those prospect relationships into client relationships. We do have another question pop up, so let me grab that real quick. Do we work with Canadians? I don't speak French, Brian, but we do work with Canadians, yes. And I'm sure we could get Google Translator if you're in Quebec. But yeah, as long as we can communicate in English, we can work with Canadians, absolutely. So I give up my cell phone on these things, and sometimes that bites me in the behind, right? But anyway, that's my cell phone number. So by all means, feel free to contact me on that. We got another. It isn't a question, but Brian, LOL. Yes, absolutely. In fact, Brian, I think I'm an honorary Canadian. I spent 5 years of my life in North Vancouver snowboarding my face off. So I don't speak French, but I do speak metric. So yeah, by all means, take a look at our website, take a look a little bit deeper as to who we are. That's my cell phone number and my email address. Please feel free to get in touch with me if you've got any questions. I pride myself on being a resource, whether you're a client of ours or not. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Sales Navigator, I'd be more than happy to help out in that regard or put you with one of my teammates. Patrice, where did I go to school? I sound like I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in, some people are going to disagree with me on this. I grew up in Titletown, USA, Green Bay, Wisconsin, in the shadows of Lambeau Field. So I left Green Bay when I was 20, and it's a long, detailed story, Patrice, but school in Arizona, time in Alaska, British Columbia, all over the West. I love skiing and snowboarding. And then I living in South Lake Tahoe, met a hot redhead, had some babies, and she was from Florida. So now we live on the East Coast of Florida. So I can't complain too much. I always live in pretty cool places. Good path indeed. Thank you, Patrice. I appreciate that. So I want to just, let me thank you again for taking some time out of your busy day. I hope this is educational. It is, it is a sales webinar, right? So I make no mistake about that. But I do try to offer you value in that process too. We're all building a business, and this is one of the ways that we fill that top of that pipeline. So if you'd like to engage in the future about doing business together, or about, just gathering some advice on how you can do this on your own, obviously I'm more than welcome that conversation. We had a chat over here. Great program. We should talk. Andy, you're absolutely right. Thank you, Andy, for being here. I appreciate it. Take care, y'all.